Mom, I'm really sorry, but I've been thinking lately that I might have to drop out of college. I just can't afford it anymore. What do you mean? Shouldn't you be able to get by with $3,000 a month? Isn't what I send you enough? Wait, Mom, you've never sent me anything, have you? Her words hit me like a punch. I was sure I'd been receiving money from her every month. There's only one explanation for this. Anger started to boil up within me. The person I decided to confront was my own mother. My name is Beatrix. I lost my husband early, and I've been raising my daughter, Anita, all by myself. Our life together has always been a stretch. I never had the time or money to worry about my appearance. Did I look so miserable? Occasionally, my mother-in-law would look at me with disdain. Beatrix, can't you at least try to improve yourself a little? Your hair, your clothes, you look, well, a bit shabby. I'm sorry, I'll try to do better. It hurt to be criticized, but she was right. I had no choice but to accept her words. I've never let myself get angry or snap back at her. In the spring of a certain year, my daughter, Anita, was accepted to her dream college. It was a far commute from home, so she decided to live on her own. Anita, I'll do my best to send you money, so you have to do your best to study. Don't push yourself too hard. Remember, your health comes first. Mom, that's my line. I'll work part-time too. Don't worry about sending me money. Her thoughtful words filled my heart. Anita had grown up to be such a kind child. Even though our life had been tough compared to her friends and other families, I wanted to support Anita and make her college life as fulfilling as possible. I didn't want her to have to worry about money, so I worked harder than ever before. $3,000 a month, that was my goal. If I could send her that much, she wouldn't have to work a part-time job. My mother-in-law noticed my efforts and spoke to me. So, you're sending money to Anita. Can you really afford it? I hope that doesn't mean less for us. You know we rely on your support. I had always been grateful to my father-in-law when he was alive, and after his death, I continued to support my in-laws out of gratitude. Don't worry, I've taken on more jobs, so I'll still be able to give you your share. Oh, I see. That's fine then. After losing my husband, my income was unstable, and I guess my mother-in-law was worried. I understood her concern, so I never thought about reducing my contribution to my in-laws. Supporting my in-laws and sending money to Anita, it was more than $3,000 in total. Still, I managed to send it all, even if it meant cutting back on my own food and clothing expenses. Working all day and night was tough, but the messages from Anita always encouraged me. Mom, I've made friends. Mom, there's this weird professor, but the class is so interesting. Mom, I didn't do well in class today and got scolded, but I'll keep trying. Reading such innocent messages from Anita, I could sense she was enjoying her college life. Any exhaustion? I felt utterly blown away, a mix of pride and concern swirling within me. I had poured my heart and soul into working hard for Anita's happiness. But as time passed, her messages became sparse until they stopped altogether. A few months later, the cheerful updates ceased entirely. Whenever I reached out in worry, her responses were curt, "I'm okay." Could it be that college life had consumed her, causing her to forget about her mother? Or perhaps she had found a boyfriend and was solely focused on him. One day, lost in such thoughts, my phone rang suddenly. It was Anita. "Hello, Anita. What's up?" It was unusual for her to call. We typically converse face-to-face at home. Even after she moved to college, most of our communication was through text. "Yeah, I'm sorry, Mom. What happened?" Anita sounded down. I could sense something was amiss, so I concentrated on her voice through my smartphone. I ran out of money. I'm thinking maybe I should quit college." Anita's words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What do you mean you're out of money?" "I'm sorry, I tried my best," she said, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. I had faithfully sent her $3,000 every month without fail. It wasn't a lavish amount, but it should have been enough to prevent her from struggling to the point of contemplating dropping out. Besides, she was supposed to be working part-time as well. I couldn't fathom how she could be in such dire straits. Could she have fallen in with the wrong crowd, neglecting her studies to squander her money? I entertained the thought for a moment before shaking it off. No, that's not like Anita. "Anita, it's okay. Take a deep breath and tell me what happened." "Yeah. I was trying to make ends meet with rent, groceries, and my part-time job earnings. I had to dip into my savings, and now that's all gone too. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry." "Hold on a second. What about the money? I send you every month." That should cover your rent and living expenses, right? No. No matter how I calculated it, the numbers didn't add up. If Anita was spending her salary, my remittances, and even dipping into her savings, something was seriously wrong. But she didn't seem to be lying. Anita, you never sent me any money, did you? Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. That's impossible. I've been sending you $3,000 every month. Did you check properly? Are you sure there's no money in your account? There's nothing. I've been keeping a close eye on my banking. If you'd sent me that much money, I definitely would have noticed. The shock hit me like a punch to the head, leaving me feeling dizzy. It was clear Anita hadn't been receiving the money, and it was causing her a lot of trouble. You don't need to drop out of college. I'll send the money right away, so don't worry. Do you have something to eat today? Hey, you're not getting sick, are you? I'm fine. I switched to a job where I get meals, and my friends have been worried about me. They've been sharing some food with me. That's great. You have good friends. We need to thank them next time. But Anita, you're already having a hard time. I don't want you to struggle anymore because of me. So that's why you didn't tell me until the situation got this critical. Thank you. But listen, for me, seeing you in such a difficult situation is much worse. So please leave the rest to me. With that, Anita finally let out her emotions and started crying. I wondered when was the last time I heard her cry like this. After comforting Anita and hanging up the phone, I immediately took action, driven by a growing anger. I decided to confront my mother-in-law, who lived nearby. Oh my, what's the matter, Beatrix? Showing up without a call? How rude. Never mind that. What have you been doing with the money I've been giving you each month? What money? Of course, that money is for living expenses, she replied, her face momentarily twitching when I mentioned the money for Anita. I'm talking about the money for Anita. I was giving that to you too, right? The remittance to Anita was not directly transferred by me into her account. I've been handing it directly to my mother-in-law, who lives nearby, and she offered to make the transfer herself when she learned it was for Anita. So, I have been giving her an additional $3,000 for Anita's remittance. I would have declined if it was only about transferring the money, but there was a reason I didn't. That's because she said, I want to contribute to my granddaughter too. That's what you said, right? I trusted you and gave you the money. But what do you mean you didn't transfer it? My mother-in-law had convinced me with that, even though she was getting money from me. I thought it was her kindness toward Anita and trusted her. What are you talking about? I've been transferring money to Anita's account every month. Yes, I have. Please stop lying so blatantly. Anita has told me that she never received any transfers. Oh my, for her to lie like that. What kind of child is she, Beatrix? Maybe it's her parenting that's the problem. Excuse me? Hearing my own daughter being called a liar made me feel a rush of blood to my head. But if I lost my temper and forgot myself here, it would play right into her hands. I told myself to calm down, took a deep breath, and spoke again. Anita doesn't lie. If you insist on this, show me the bank statements where you made the transfers. I threw those away a long time ago. Listen, by checking Anita's account history, it's easy to see whether you really transferred the money or not. Even after knowing this, are you still going to call Anita a liar? Anyone could think of this, but when I said it, my mother-in-law seemed at a loss for words. She huffed again, muttering stubbornly under her breath. So persistent. I took a deep breath and continued, if you insist that you transferred the money, we should let the police investigate. The police? Isn't that a bit dramatic? It's not. This is about money. You said you transferred it, but it didn't show up. That sounds like a crime to me. We need to get it properly investigated. I don't think we need to go that far. Well, then I'll contact them now. No, stop. As I pretended to call the police, she lunged to snatch the phone from my hands. She missed and stumbled, then fell down and started crying. I never expected the mere mention of the police to have such an effect. In reality, I wasn't sure if the police would do anything in a situation like this where it was obvious that a family member was involved. But the word police itself seemed to weigh heavily on her. Despite her sobbing, I felt nothing. Anita, who had tried so hard not to cry, was the one who had suffered. According to her subsequent confession, she had always loved shopping. She probably had a shopping addiction, although she didn't seem to realize it. She tearfully told me about how her husband had once cut up her credit cards and how difficult it was for her. As far as I could tell, it was entirely her own doing, but she didn't seem to understand that. I suspected something was off. My mother-in-law kept getting the same amount of money even after he passed away, but I started getting requests for money earlier than expected. That never happened when he was around because he never gave me any money. When I went grocery shopping, he would check all the receipts, and I had to return every cent of the change. Can you believe that? It was awful. I felt so pitiful. I couldn't begin to understand what she thought was pitiful and didn't bother trying. In other words, when her husband was alive, he managed the household finances and kept her from having any extra money. When he was gone, I finally had some money. I started buying things I couldn't afford before, and, well, I fell a little short. Then you mentioned sending money to Anita, so you took Anita's money. Do you realize that's theft? Theft? That sounds so awful. I was just borrowing it with no intention of returning it. Anita suffered because of your selfishness. She's young, she can handle it. Caught off guard by her incomprehensible retort, I was at a loss for words. I've been deprived for so long. I couldn't buy anything I wanted, couldn't even go out to eat or travel. I had such a hard life. Young people can work and play as much as they want, so why shouldn't I take some money? I stood there speechless, staring at my mother-in-law as she cried and screamed, and all I could think was that I had trusted this person. My father-in-law had done me many favors, but now that I think about it, I can't recall my mother-in-law ever being kind to me. However, when Anita was still a little girl, my mother-in-law did buy her various things, so I thought she was expressing affection for Anita in her own way. And I was relieved. Looking back, I suspect all that shopping was just to satisfy her own desires. I failed to see that, and I caused Anita unnecessary suffering. Such a gentle child, I can never regret it enough. Mother-in-law, no, Evelyn. I intentionally called her by her first name. I don't want to think of her as my mother, even if it's just in-law. I cannot forgive you. After that, I sought free legal advice and did everything I could to recover the money, but you can't take from a person who has nothing. However, I had a trump card. Before my father-in-law passed away, he left me a will giving me the rights to his property. At that time, I wondered why he left it to me, but now I can guess that he might have been worried about his wife's reckless behavior. Naturally, my mother-in-law demanded that I renounce the inheritance, but I firmly refused. I want to praise my past self for staying firm despite being severely criticized as a greedy daughter-in-law. No matter what they say, I felt that I couldn't disregard my father-in-law's feelings. I didn't know the reason or the circumstances, but maybe I felt something. So technically, the house and the land are mine and my mother-in-law is just living there rent-free. I decided to sell the house. That meant the parasitic mother-in-law living there was in the way. So I contacted my mother-in-law's parents. This contact information was secretly given to me by my father-in-law, just in case. I really admire his foresight. That's why it's such a shame he didn't have a good eye for women. I knew that my mother-in-law had always hated her own family, but the reason became clear when I contacted them. They were a traditional farming family with strong tendencies toward male chauvinism. A stranger like me called, and they listened with a suspicious attitude, but they gladly agreed to take in my mother-in-law. It seemed like they wanted free labor. The conversation progressed quickly, and one day, out of the blue, her family came to pick her up, an event that my mother-in-law couldn't have predicted. I'll never forget the color draining from her face. When I took her brother, who came to pick her up, to her house, now my mother-in-law is doing tough farm work under strict supervision. She can't even go shopping at the supermarket, let alone squander money, and she seems to be living the life without touching money at all. Due to the stress, she seems to have aged quickly and is working every day as a wrinkled, frail, ghost-like figure with white hair. Looking at the recent bank statement of the money I just transferred to Anita, I smiled, thinking that if I saw her at night, I might scream. The house sold easily. It wasn't in a particularly good location, but once I decided I was okay with selling it for a low price, a buyer came forward immediately. The amount was enough to recoup the money wasted by my mother-in-law. I used that money without hesitation for my living expenses, and I send Anita the money I earn from working. It's all money, but somehow the money I got from selling the house feels tainted, and I didn't like that. I've transferred this month's money just now. With that thought, I quickly texted Anita. Even if I hadn't transferred the money, as long as I had communicated that I had sent it to Anita, she wouldn't have discovered the mistake so late. I regret now for neglecting such simple communication due to my busy schedule. The reply came swiftly. Got it? The message full of Anita's usual energy, accompanied by a string of cute emojis. She checked so quickly, but these days it seems you can easily check your bank balance on your mobile phone. I don't understand it at all, so I can only admire the adaptability of the young. Since then, Anita started sending messages frequently again. With the money reliably reaching her, her life must have become stable. It's clear from her texts that she's energetically continuing college without quitting. While I was feeling pleased, another message arrived from Anita. Looking at it, my eyes widened, and I broke into a grin. "Mom, there's someone I want you to meet. I didn't expect this day to come. It was all worth it. I can't sit around. I need to prepare something good." I changed my plan and headed to a high-end supermarket I don't usually go to. Since I no longer have to send money to my mother-in-law, there's a bit more wiggle room in my life. I've even been able to quit a few of the jobs I was juggling. I wondered what kind of food my daughter's partner likes. With a bit of premature speculation, I laughed. In the near future, I plan to invite the fresh-faced couple to our home and treat them with the best hospitality I can muster. "Do I know you? Are you a friend of my husband from his middle school days?" I asked, eyeing the stranger warily. "I'm sorry, but you need to leave right now," I insisted, my voice firm and resolute. "I'm Jackson," the man introduced himself, seemingly unaffected by my demand. "I'm 33 and currently single." Today marked the wedding day of my colleague Lucas, who also happened to be a close friend. As I mingled with guests, a man who claimed to be a relative of Bryce, the groom, approached me and ushered me towards a waiting area just before the ceremony. Physically imposing and with a firm grip, the man guided me forcefully with his strong arms, leaving me feeling uneasy about his intentions. Thinking that perhaps the bride wanted to extend a pre-ceremony greeting, I followed the relative, assuming goodwill. Initially, I admired her apparent courtesy, but that admiration swiftly soured. It became evident that my presence was not welcome for congenial purposes, but rather as a means of coercion. The bride, waiting in the anteroom, wore a malevolent expression that sent a shiver down my spine. Momentarily taken aback, I managed to compose myself and offered my congratulations. "Congratulations on your wedding," I said, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Her response was abrupt and commanding. "You need to leave immediately," she ordered, leaving no room for argument. "What?" I blurted out in disbelief, unable to contain my reaction to the bride's statement. Her response to my question was exasperatingly patronizing. "This is precisely why dealing with uneducated individuals is such a hassle," she muttered under her breath, the disdain evident in her tone. It was clear that the bride harbored disdain for my educational background, or rather, the lack thereof. She didn't mince her words as she elaborated. "Allow me to clarify. My husband and I hail from esteemed lineage, and today's guests belong to the elite echelons of society. Your presence as a mere high school graduate is jarring and distasteful to me." The implications were not lost on me. My educational background had become a source of embarrassment in their esteemed circles. Naturally, I was aware of Lucas' prestigious background and the disdain some harbor towards those without extensive academic credentials. It wasn't a new experience for me. I'd encountered similar attitudes before. Despite this, my bond with Lucas transcended such superficial judgments, prompting me to attend his wedding. My sole intention was to partake in the joyous occasion and celebrate my friend's union. However, the bride's blatant disdain towards me, a guest she deemed unworthy, cast a shadow over the festivities. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, I inquired if I could offer Lucas a few words of congratulation before taking my leave. The reaction from the bride and her relatives was immediate and explosive. Feeling overwhelmed by the tension and animosity, I couldn't help but mutter, "This is all a bit too much for me." Confused by their laughter in what seemed like a serious moment, I dared to inquire about the reason behind their amusement. The bride's response stunned me beyond belief. "My husband didn't invite you here out of friendship, but rather out of pity," she declared matter-of-factly. As she continued, the pieces of an unexpected puzzle started to fall into place. Despite my bewilderment, she proceeded, delving into the depths of my troubled past, one marked by parental abandonment and a childhood spent in the confines of an orphanage. She went on to explain how my struggles with malnutrition had left a lasting impact, evident in my tall yet slender frame even into adulthood. The revelation left me speechless, realizing that Lucas's invitation to his wedding was not an act of camaraderie, but rather an expression of empathy towards a former classmate enduring ongoing hardship. The bride jumped to a startling conclusion, assuming Lucas's invitation was an attempt to provide me with a meal at the wedding. I tried to reason with her, explaining the impossibility of such a scenario, but my protest fell on deaf ears. In a tone laced with disdain, she proceeded to belittle my worth, emphasizing the stark disparity between Lucas's accomplishments and mine. According to her, Lucas's compassion could potentially elevate his status, but she couldn't fathom allowing someone with only a middle school education to attend her wedding. She highlighted Lucas's prestigious academic background and successful career, contrasting it sharply with my own humble position as a janitor or security guard in the same company. The bride's words stung with contempt as she dismissed any notion of Lucas feeling sorry for me simply because we were former classmates. To her, the idea was preposterous, bordering on outrageous. We're both employed by the same company, one that's recently entered the public domain and shows considerable promise. It's a sought-after workplace, topping the charts for job seekers. Our company policy prioritizes talent acquisition, meaning individuals deemed valuable can join regardless of academic background. Despite the company's prestige, I acknowledge the disparity between a junior high school graduate like myself and a college-educated colleague. Yet, regardless of the motives behind Lucas's invitation, I simply wish to extend my congratulations. I harbored no expectations in return. However, earnestly articulate my sentiments and plead my case, the bride remains resolutely unyielding. Her gaze is consistently cold, as though regarding something unsavory. It's as if she's reluctant to even share the same airspace with me. She dismisses my heartfelt expressions of friendship with disdainful indifference. Are you trying to cozy up to my husband and snag a job with just a junior high school diploma? Her words were just a rejection of my presence at their wedding. They hinted at potential repercussions in the workplace. Caught off guard, I struggled to find a response. Despite the company's acceptance of individuals with minimal education, I couldn't bring myself to accept such condescension, especially from the spouse of my colleague. Suddenly, a male relative's actions escalated the tension further. Ignoring my protests, he forcibly grabbed at me, his actions invasive and aggressive. Attempting to fend him off, I reached for his arm, but he forcefully pushed me against the wall. A sharp pain shot through my back and chest, eliciting a low, guttural growl of pain. Enough, just leave, the relative barked before completing its sentence, abruptly opening the door to the waiting room. I was unceremoniously ejected, landing on the floor with a resounding thud. Despite the rough treatment, I resolved to carry on without offering my congratulations to Lucas. Preferring not to risk being barred from the wedding altogether, I sought refuge in a nearby cafe, biding my time before rejoining the festivities with the other guests. As the wedding reception commenced, I settled into my seat, hoping to blend in unnoticed. However, the bride's penetrating gaze soon found me. Without uttering a word, her lips moved silently, forming a single question directed at me. What are you doing here? The bride's expression shifted as the relative man spotted me. With determination, he lunged towards me, seizing my arm in an attempt to forcibly remove me. However, this time, I wasn't going to be ejected so easily. Nearby attendees sprang to action, rallying around me, shielding me from the relative's grasp. Panic flashed across the relative's face as he struggled to comprehend the situation. Sensing the urgency, the bride seemed equally flustered. Seizing the moment, I grabbed hold of a nearby microphone and addressed the bride, who remained bewildered by the unfolding events. Bride, I owe you an apology for my earlier words. My desire to witness Lucas's wedding led me here today, I declared loudly, ensuring my message reached her despite the chaos surrounding us. Lucas, seated at the head table, overheard our exchange and interjected with confusion and concern. What's happening here? What's all this about? He demanded. The bride, visibly shaken by Lucas's unexpected intrusion, responded in a tremulous voice, It's nothing, just go back to your seat, Lucas. With a hint of desperation, she added, I asked Jackson to leave because he only has a junior high school education. It wouldn't be a good match for us, Lucas. Feeling a sense of resignation, I addressed the bride, who appeared lost in her own distress. I apologize for any inconvenience I've caused. If it's what you desire, I'll sever all professional ties with Lucas. Please forgive me for any disruption I've caused. A hush descended over the entire hall as my declaration hung in the air. The bride was the first to break the silence. "What? Fired? What's going on?" Lucas's voice quivered with confusion. "You? What did you just say?" Recognition dawned on Jackson's face as he processed my words. "That's correct. I am Jackson, the president of our company," I affirmed, my tone steady. "I may have only graduated from junior high school, but I founded a delivery company at the age of 16. With nothing but a bicycle, I transformed it into a major corporation over the span of a decade. And in response to changing consumer habits, we swiftly transitioned into a publicly traded entity." Lucas wasn't just a friend to me, he was a lifeline, a source of unwavering support when I needed it most. He shared his meals with me, showing kindness and compassion during times when I struggled with malnutrition. Raised in an orphanage until the age of 15, I lacked the familial stability that Lucas enjoyed from the age of 12, when he was adopted by his current parents. Despite our different upbringings, Lucas and I remained close even after our paths diverged geographically. When we embarked on the journey of entrepreneurship together, Lucas vowed to dedicate himself to our shared vision. Witnessing his transformation from a shy individual to a confident groom filled me with immense joy. My determination to congratulate Lucas stemmed from a deep-rooted friendship and gratitude. I remained steadfast even in the face of the bride's objections. Unbeknownst to me, the bride's disdain stemmed from my educational background. Yet I was unaware that being a junior high school graduate didn't preclude me from holding a significant position within our company. The authority to terminate employees rested with me, a fact that the bride herself had acknowledged when she requested I sever ties with Lucas. I gently assured her that I had complied with her wishes. In response, she uttered a cold remark, confirming Lucas's termination. The bride, previously frozen in shock, muttered disdainfully, "Fired? If you're such a failure, I have no use for you." Without hesitation, she renounced the marriage entirely, citing my lack of elite status and high income as deal breakers. It was a startling turn of events as she promptly called off the engagement with Lucas, who had just been dismissed from his job. The attendees erupted in uproar at her abrupt declaration. Amidst the chaos, any semblance of our previously amicable relationship vanished. Accusations flew as she labeled the situation a marriage scam, demanding compensation from Lucas for the broken engagement. Lucas's revulsion was palpable in the midst of the chaos. Quietly, I reached out and tapped the bride on the shoulder as she continued to raise her voice. Leaning in, I whispered, "You might want to start saving that for alimony payments." With that, I initiated a video playback on the projector, revealing footage captured by a phone I had strategically left recording in the bride's waiting room. The recording, inadvertently triggered when a male relative manhandled me, potentially held crucial evidence of my injury. As I was pushed against the wall, the phone fell, continuing to record. What it captured was damning: the bride's indiscretion with the same male relative in the waiting room. As the ceremony commenced, I retraced my steps to the waiting room in search of the phone I suspected I had dropped. To my relief, I discovered it nestled in a corner, untouched. However, the shock of what I witnessed upon playing back the recording left me reeling. Witnessing such deceitful behavior on what should have been a sacred occasion shook me to the core. It was difficult to comprehend how anyone could stoop to such lows. Driven by a sense of moral obligation, I immediately sought out Lucas to disclose the damning evidence. The revelation of the bride's true nature sparked a fiery reaction from Lucas's relatives, who unleashed their fury upon the bride's family. In response, the bride's relatives vehemently denied any association with the man implicated in the recording. They adamantly refused to acknowledge any connection to him. It later emerged that the man accompanying the bride was nothing more than an unfaithful partner. Despite his charming demeanor, he was essentially a freeloader, lacking any meaningful employment. The bride, yearning for a life of prestige and sophistication within an educated family, sought to elevate her status by securing a marriage with Lucas, a gentle and unassuming man. Her intentions were revealed to be far from genuine, painting her in a negative light. In contrast, Lucas, dedicated to his studies and somewhat naive in matters of love, possessed a trusting nature that left him vulnerable to manipulation. Ultimately, I'm grateful that my humble education allowed me to see through the deceitful intentions of those involved. Never did I anticipate that my educational background would prove valuable in such a manner. The deceitful bride faced the consequences of her actions, being ordered to pay a hefty sum of $5 million for wedding expenses and an additional $3 million for terminating the engagement, accumulating the staggering debt of $8 million. As a result of the humiliation she endured, she found herself isolated from her family. Her unfaithful partner, alarmed by the overwhelming debt, fled the scene, leaving her to face the repercussions alone. With her once inviolable life now in shambles, the bride was forced into a solitary existence, residing in a rundown apartment and toiling tirelessly day and night in a desperate attempt to repay her debts. The arrival of the deceitful woman inadvertently strengthened the bond between Lucas and me, fostering a deeper friendship as we navigated through the ordeal. Meanwhile, our company experienced a period of rapid and steady growth. Observing Lucas's enduring desire for marriage, I contemplated accompanying him to a matchmaking event in the future. Head back home, you penniless, unemployed hag. What's the scam with you tagging along on this trip, Gretties? My disappointment in my family was as predictable as ever. Well, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. While reveling in some solitary moments away from their company, I resolved to take matters into my own hands. Just then, my brother's voice chimed in on the phone. Hey, what's going on, sis? What have you done? My name's Lucy, a 30-year-old office worker, and for the past 3 years, I've been with someone special, Alan. He's a genuine gentleman who not only treats me with kindness but deeply cares for me. We first crossed paths in college. He was my senior, and I often turned to him for advice on work or personal matters. He always listened intently and offered wise counsel. As we transitioned into the working world, we kept in touch, meeting regularly. Then, one day, he confessed his feelings and we embarked on a relationship. Since then, our journey together has been blissful, filled with shared moments and dreams of a future together. Then came the day when Alan popped the question, Lucy, I want to spend the rest of my life by your side. Will you marry me? Yes, we both agreed, and the decision to tie the knot was made. Swiftly, we shared the news with our families. Nice to meet you, I'm Lucy. I introduced myself warmly. Oh, so we finally meet. Alan has talked a lot about you, his mother exclaimed with a smile. You're just as lovely as he described, I replied, feeling the hint of shyness. Don't sell yourself short. Come on in, make yourself at home, she insisted kindly. Thank you, I said gratefully. Alan had lost his father a few years back, leaving only his mother in the family home. I was anxious about meeting her, but she greeted me with open arms. Over tea and snacks, we engaged in a delightful conversation, easing any worries I had about fitting into the family. Lucy, you're truly a remarkable person. I couldn't be happier that you'll be joining Alan as his wife, my mother-in-law to be praised, her kind words catching me off guard and leaving me slightly flustered. I'm eagerly anticipating your wedding. Take care, Mom. Thank you for today, I replied, bidding her farewell. As our meeting concluded on a positive note, a sense of relief washed over me. However, the thought of introducing Alan to my own family immediately dampened my spirits. The truth is, I've never been particularly fond of my own family. The root of this issue stems from the way my parents treated me throughout my childhood. Both of them were star athletes. Mom excelled in track and field, while Dad dominated the soccer field. Their athletic prowess earned them scholarships to college, and naturally, they expected the same level of athletic achievement from their children. Unfortunately, I didn't possess the same athletic talents they did. Despite their efforts to nurture my sporting abilities by enrolling me in various activities like basketball, swimming, table tennis, and even figure skating, I remained average at best. It was evident that my parents were disappointed by my lack of athletic prowess. Then came the arrival of my younger brother, Kyle. With aspirations of having a son, my parents eagerly enrolled him in sports as well. It turned out that Kyle had a natural talent for soccer. When the local youth coach praised his abilities, my parents were overjoyed and redirected all their attention towards him. Kyle is truly exceptional. He's something truly special, they would gush, their words implying my inadequacy. It seemed as though it was nothing more than a disappointment in their eyes. They lavished Kyle with attention and neglected me, even as I progressed through middle and high school. While I dedicated myself to my studies and excelled academically, they dismissed my achievements, claiming that academic success held no real value. When I expressed my desire to attend college, they brushed it off. citing financial constraints, so I relied on scholarships to pursue higher education. Meanwhile, Kyle continued to thrive in soccer, earning himself a scholarship to high school. My parents couldn't contain their excitement. He's destined for greatness. We'll do anything for Kyle. Growing up in the shadow of such adoration, Kyle began to look down on me. Lucy, you're such a failure and a curse. Even mom and dad can't stand you. If you weren't around, they could invest all their resources in me. You're just dragging us down. Kyle's hurtful words were a regular occurrence, and my parents never intervened to correct him. You truly are a burden. Spending money on you is just a waste, echoed their sentiment, further crushing my already fragile self-esteem. Despite managing to secure admission to a decent college and landing a job at a reputable company, my sense of worth remained battered, perpetually overshadowed by Kyle's accomplishments. He effortlessly earned yet another soccer scholarship for college, and my parents beamed with pride. Meanwhile, I was struggling to make ends meet, burdened by student loan debt. While Kyle continued to bask in the warmth of parental affection, living at home, pursuing his education, and indulging in soccer, the road to professional success proved arduous. Eventually, Kyle's dreams of going pro fizzled out, and he had to settle for a regular job. Yet my parents remained steadfast in their pride, and Kyle continued to enjoy the comforts of home, content in his own bubble. Every Christmas when our extended family gathered, my parents insisted on my presence. They would introduce me as their disappointing daughter while lavishing praise upon Kyle, their pride and joy. But Lucy is thriving, she has a stable job, relatives would interject. No, Kyle is far more impressive. My parents would dismiss their comments, leaving me disheartened each time. It became a pattern. My family's consistent favoritism towards my brother, their disregard for my achievements. Eventually, I stopped attending these gatherings altogether. I avoided family events and hesitated to introduce my fiancé to them, knowing how they would treat him. Despite being aware of my family's attitude, Alan insisted on a family meeting. So, after years of avoidance, I made the decision to return home. I called my mom to share the news. What? No, how have you been? Or it's been too long. Her response was devoid of warmth or interest, a stark reminder of how little I mattered in their eyes, even after all this time. It's been years since you reached out. What's the matter now? My mom's voice came through, devoid of any warmth. Well, I'm getting married, and my fiancé wants to meet the family. Could we arrange that? I stuttered nervously. Why bother with all that hassle? Just tie the knot and be done with it. Her response was disappointingly cold. Just as I was processing her words, Kyle's voice cut in. Mom, who are you talking to? He inquired. It's Lucy. She's talking about having a family meeting because she's getting married. Really? That sounds amusing. I'd love to see who this guy is. Let's invite them, Kyle chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Fine, if Kyle insists, my mom relented, her tone lacking enthusiasm. All right, you can come for the meeting, she added, a hint of obligation in her voice. After overhearing their conversation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Despite their lukewarm invitation, I reasoned that they did express some desire to see me. So, on my next day off, I made the decision to visit my family. Just be prepared for the worst. They might not treat you well, Alan cautioned me. Yeah, I understand. But from that brief phone call, it sounds like you have quite the family dynamic, I replied, trying to lighten the mood. This isn't a laughing matter. I've had my fair share of struggles with them, Alan reminded me solemnly. I insist on meeting your family before we tie the knot. We'll keep it brief, all right? I urged Alan as we drove to my family home. Upon arriving, we rang the doorbell, but no one answered. Resorting to my key, I let us in. As we entered the living room, I was taken aback to find my family seated on the sofa. What surprised me even more was the presence of an unfamiliar young woman. Deciding to start with a simple greeting, I spoke up. Hello, everyone. It's been a while. This is my fiancé, Alan. Pleasure to meet you all. I introduced Alan, prompting my family's gaze to shift towards him. Well, I half expected Lucy to bring home some dull, unremarkable fellow, but you seem all right, Kyle remarked crudely, eliciting an awkward chuckle from Alan. Kyle, who's the woman next to you? Your girlfriend? I couldn't hide my irritation at Kyle for bringing an unexpected guest to our pre-planned family gathering. But Kyle's response caught me off guard. She's my wife, Mia. We've been living here since we got married. He dropped the bombshell casually. What? Wife? My eyes widened in disbelief. You got married? I was stunned, the news hitting me like a ton of bricks. Yeah, last year, Kyle confirmed, seemingly unfazed. I was left speechless, grappling with the realization that my own brother had tied the knot without even informing me. As I tried to process this revelation, my raised voice drew Mom's annoyance. You're too nosy. It's none of your business if Kyle got married, she snapped, brushing off my concerns. I felt a mix of hurt and betrayal. Dad then turned his attention to Alan, ignoring the tension in the room. I'm not particularly interested, but what do you do for a living? You're marrying Lucy, so it can't be anything impressive, but let's hear it, he remarked bluntly. Alan's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with my rising anger. As I clenched my fists in frustration, Alan gently restrained me, reminding me not to let their words get to me. I apologize for any rudeness. Here's my card, Alan said, extending his business card to Dad, who initially regarded it with little interest. However, his expression quickly changed. You're a lawyer, Dad exclaimed, his eyes widening in surprise. Mom, Kyle, and Maya shared in the astonishment. Wow, that's impressive. Elizabeth, prepare some tea for our guests, would you? I'll handle it, Dad declared, suddenly hospitable. A real lawyer, how fascinating, he mused as the atmosphere in the room shifted. Alan couldn't help but be taken aback by the sudden change in attitude. I never would have guessed Lucy's fiancé was a lawyer, Kyle remarked, echoing the sentiment shared by the others. Does that mean you make a lot of money? Maybe you can buy me a designer bag for my birthday, Maya chimed in, her audacity leaving me speechless. It was astonishing that she would make such requests to Alan upon their first meeting. Nevertheless, Alan responded with a wry smile, handling the situation with grace. Alan, you really shouldn't be saying such things to my fiancé, especially on our first meeting. Alan responded with a wry smile, addressing me as bold comments. We're going to be family, so let's try to get along, Mom interjected, attempting to diffuse the tension. However, I couldn't shake off the sense of unease that lingered within me. As the families gathered for a joint meeting, both my parents and Kyle's family exhibited an unusual level of enthusiasm. Even my mother-in-law appeared somewhat taken aback by their fervor. Following the meeting, I took the opportunity to apologize to my mother-in-law, only to discover that Alan had already informed her of the incident. Don't worry about it, she reassured me with a smile, instantly alleviating my concerns. It was a moment of relief, reaffirming my belief in her genuine kindness. 2 months later, Alan and I exchanged vows with my previously indifferent family in attendance. Surprisingly, after the wedding, they began reaching out to us more frequently. Why don't you and Alan join us for dinner sometime? We know this wonderful restaurant, Mom's voice would chirp over the phone. I couldn't shake the suspicion that they were eyeing Alan's money, given his profession as a lawyer. But I wasn't about to fall for their scheme. We're tied up at the moment, so we can't commit to anything right now. We'll keep you posted when we're available, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Sure, we'll be eagerly waiting. We're flexible with our schedule, Mom responded, her enthusiasm palpable. I felt a surge of disgust. It was clear they were more interested in exploiting my marriage to a wealthy man than in building a genuine relationship with me. After maintaining distance for some time, Mom called again a few months later. When are you and Alan going to join us for dinner, Lucy? Mom's voice dripped with false sweetness, and I could practically feel her desperation through the phone. Sorry, Mom, we're pretty swamped, I replied curtly, already contemplating ending the call. But before I could, she dropped a bombshell. We're planning to celebrate my half-century birthday, she continued, her tone shifting slightly. After all, your father and I did see you through high school. It wouldn't hurt to show a little gratitude. I could feel her frustration mounting, expecting us to start treating her differently. But deep down, I couldn't deny that she had a point. After all, my parents had supported me until I graduated college, even if I'd paid my own way through it. Perhaps it was time to show a bit of gratitude. As Mom hit the big 5-0, I relented. All right, count us in for the celebration. Really? That's fantastic. We're actually planning a family trip, so it'll be perfect for all of us to spend time together. A family vacation, huh? I mused, not entirely enthusiastic about the idea. But then I realized it could be an opportunity to enjoy some quality time alone with Alan. When I brought up the idea to Alan, He was on board, so we decided to join the family trip. Mom's reaction was pure excitement. Could you handle the reservations? I'll send you a bunch of URLs for hotels and plans, Mom requested eagerly. What? Mom inundated me with URLs, all pointing to luxury hotels and high-end restaurants. I couldn't help but feel irked by their extravagance, but I reasoned that this might be a one-time indulgence. Reluctantly, I checked out the links and proceeded with the bookings. When I called Mom to confirm the reservations, her joy was palpable. I can't wait, thank you so much, she exclaimed, brimming with excitement. At last, the long-awaited day for our half-century family vacation had arrived, and our destination was sunny Florida. Excitement filled the air as we boarded the plane, with everyone in high spirits. Both my parents and Kyle, along with his partner, seemed to be thoroughly enjoying themselves. On touchdown, Alan and I made it clear to the family that we intended to explore on our own. Despite their attempts to persuade us to join them for souvenir shopping, we managed to gracefully evade the invitation and set off on our own adventure. We arranged to reconvene for dinner at the upscale restaurant we had reserved. As Alan and I wandered the city, taking in its sights and sounds, time seemed to slip away effortlessly. Eventually, we made our way to the fancy restaurant where our parents and Kyle's family were already waiting. You're late, Mom chimed in sharply as we approached. Well, we still have 10 minutes until our reservation, Alan calmly pointed out. Suddenly, their demeanor shifted. We were talking to you, Mom retorted curtly. What? Our business is with Alan, not you. Mom's words cut through the air, her tone sharp and dismissive. Thank you for covering the expenses for this lavish dinner and hotel stay, Dad added, his gratitude directed solely towards Alan. Alan looked bewildered, while Kyle and the others turned their attention to me. You're finished here, Lucy. You don't deserve any of this. You're nothing but a burden, Kyle spat out angrily. What are you even talking about? I tried to reason, but their voices rose in unison. Get out of here, you jobless loser. You have no place on this trip. They berated me, their words dripping with disdain. Disgusted by my family's treatment, I realized their intentions to exclude me from the beginning. So this is how it's going to be, I thought to myself, feeling a surge of determination. You'll regret this. Without another word, I leaned in close to Alan and whispered, Fine, I'll leave now. Our parents and Kyle's family looked smug as they entered the restaurant with Alan, I remarked bitterly. Quickly, I made alternate arrangements. Thankfully, a decent hotel had a last-minute cancellation, so I secured a room and checked in. Settling into a cozy lounge with a picturesque view, I indulged in a cup of coffee to soothe my frayed nerves. It wasn't long before Kyle's call interrupted my moment of peace. What did you do, Lucy? Alan's gone, Kyle's voice sounded frantic. I have no idea. You know Alan, he's usually clueless but sharp when it counts, I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. Sure. But this is different. I told him I'm staying at another hotel, so he should join me, Kyle explained. Whenever you're kidding, Kyle, I retorted, feeling a surge of irritation. Kyle abruptly ended the call, leaving me to ponder the situation. Soon after, Alan appeared at my hotel, a mischievous grin adorning his face. Did it work? Were they mad? I asked eagerly. Yeah, they were furious. They're hopeless, Alan replied, shaking his head in disbelief. You were going to foot the bill, and they still acted like that, I exclaimed incredulously. Even Alan was taken aback by their behavior. We brushed it off and decided to treat ourselves to a meal at the hotel's fancy restaurant. Returning to our room, we unwound and woke up feeling rejuvenated the next morning. Eager to explore, we embarked on a sightseeing adventure. Wanting to avoid traveling back with our parents, we opted to change our flight to an earlier one. While waiting for our flight, Mom's furious voice pierced through the phone. Hello, what's going on? I thought you didn't require my assistance, I answered calmly. What's the meaning of this? Why is the hotel bill due at checkout? Mom demanded angrily. That's how I made the reservation. Don't joke around, I replied, trying to maintain composure. We can't afford $11,000 per person. If you're enjoying luxury, you should cover the expenses. Unless you want to end up in jail, Mom snapped back. Stop it. You're so arrogant for a parasite, she spat out before ending the call. You're the one who needs to stop. I had every intention of covering all the expenses for this trip as a gesture of gratitude for all the years you've supported me. But you ruined it by kicking me out. I asserted firmly. Wait, you were going to pay for everything. Mom's voice wavered with disbelief. That's exactly what I've been trying to tell you, I affirmed. There's no way you could afford something like that, Mom countered skeptically. Don't underestimate me. I work at the headquarters of a major corporation and hold a managerial position. I earn significantly more than Dad and have substantial savings, I explained calmly. Really? Mom was left speechless, but at that point, it hardly mattered. I had made my decision to sever ties completely. I have to board the plane now, so goodbye, I stated, ending the conversation abruptly. Wait, hold on, I muttered before swiftly ending the call and blocking all their numbers. Fortunately, they were unaware of our address or workplaces, preventing any unexpected visits. However, my Nave family made a reckless move by storming the law firm listed on Alan's business card. Their disruptive behavior led to chaos, with Kyle even causing damage to office equipment, resulting in their arrest. After indulging in an extravagant family trip, they now face the consequences of their actions, hefty damages and fines to pay. Dad and Kyle were subsequently terminated from their jobs, and now they all struggle to make ends meet with part-time employment, trapped in a cycle of poverty and constant conflict. It's a stark lesson in be what you sow. On the other hand, Alan and I continue to lead a contented life. I'm overjoyed to announce that I'm expecting, and we recently welcomed our beautiful daughter into the world, celebrating the momentous occasion with my supportive mother-in-law. Moving forward, I intend to cherish my true family, Alan, my mother-in-law, and our daughter, and embrace a life filled with happiness and fulfillment. Hi, I'm Jenny, and I'm 27 years old. 3 years ago, I married Hugo, who is the most wonderful person I've ever met. He's kind and funny, and he makes me feel really good every single day. But there's a bit of a snag. His mom, Maria, isn't exactly my biggest fan. She's always had it in for me ever since we met. I get it though. Hugo is her precious son, and she doesn't want him to get hurt. She's just trying to look out for him, but sometimes she goes a bit too far. She's the kind of person who might do little things that bother you on purpose, making you feel like you're the one who's being unreasonable. You know how we all have someone like that in our lives, right? Unfortunately, for me, that someone is my mother-in-law. But I'm a bit different. I'm the kind of person who speaks up when something isn't right, and I don't hold back. I think that's why Hugo likes me. He's more quiet and gentle, and they say opposites attract, don't they? I've studied a bit of psychology, so I can tell when someone has not so nice intentions. I think our strong personalities clash, which might be why she said something not so nice the first time we met. Jenny, shouldn't you cut down on your food? Everyone at the table fell silent, shocked by the unexpected comment. I felt deeply embarrassed, my face turning pale with humiliation. The table included me, my boyfriend Hugo, my father-in-law Kyle, and Maria, Hugo's mother. Kyle seemed too taken aback to say anything, lowering his head in solidarity with my embarrassment. Hugo, feeling a mix of embarrassment and anger, promptly scolded his mother. Mom, seriously, that's a terrible thing to say. Jenny can eat whatever she likes. Oh honey, I didn't mean to upset you. I just want what's best for you, you know. I've noticed you've gained some weight. Hugo showed me your old photos, and you looked so much better back then. I mean, not that you don't look good now, but I'm just trying to help. I tried to stay calm, not wanting to make a scene since it was my first time meeting the family and I really liked Hugo. Even though I was embarrassed and irritated, I didn't say anything back. I just smiled politely and thanked her for her advice. Unfortunately, situations like that kept happening more often as we spent more time together. I hoped the teasing would stop once Maria realized I was good for her son, but it only got worse. On the bright side, I was getting along well with my father-in-law, Kyle, who was incredibly kind. While I grew closer to everyone in Hugo's family, Maria seemed to be the only one who didn't like me, and it was hard to figure out why. I even met Jack, Hugo's childhood friend who was practically part of the family. Despite everyone else being welcoming, Maria remained the exception. I felt grateful for the love and support I received from the rest of Hugo's family. However, things took a turn on my wedding day. Maria seemed determined to make trouble and tried to undermine me at every turn. She insisted my hair should be styled a certain way, like hers was on her wedding day. No, I want my hair like this, not in an updo. Thanks for your suggestion, Maria. I disagree. You look really unattractive." The bridal party gasped, but I wasn't surprised. I'd gotten used to Maria's comments. She tried to backtrack quickly. "Oh, darling, I just mean you could look better. And I see a bit of myself in Jenny. She's a bright young woman. Even though I looked better at her age, she's beautiful in her own way." My father-in-law managed to stop Maria's harsh comments that day, but the hurt lingered. It wasn't like me to stay quiet and let it go. This constant negativity was wearing me down, making me lose my usual energy. Fast forward 3 years to today. We were at Hugo's parents' house for dinner, including Jack, so it seemed important. She wanted to share something with us, and I suspected it wasn't just a random dinner plan. Turns out, I was right. It was a nice surprise, but things took a turn when my mother-in-law started making an announcement. She had everyone's attention as she pulled out a piece of paper. "Hey everyone, I have something important to share. Since my birthday is coming up, I wanted to let you all know about my special plans. I've decided we're going to Hawaii." She showed us the paper confirming the trip. "Wow, that sounds amazing." "What? That's fantastic, Jenny. Hawaii sounds like a dream." "Oh wow, this is incredible news. I'm thrilled beyond words. Thank you so much, Mom." "Actually, you're not coming." "Wait, what?" "Honey, what do you mean? That wasn't the plan. I made some changes last minute and canceled her ticket to avoid extra charges. So my ticket was already purchased and she just canceled it. Why does she dislike me so much? Mom, what's going on?" Jack and I stayed silent as the tension escalated and harsh words flew back and forth. Eventually, Maria reluctantly spoke up after being pressed for an explanation. "Okay, fine. I'll tell you why I decided Jenny shouldn't come to this family event. As I'm getting older, I want to spend my time with the people I care about most. Unfortunately, Jenny isn't on that list." "Seriously, Mom? That's so hurtful." "There's nothing wrong with me. Don't disrespect me. I'm just saying, well, Jenny isn't technically family since she's not related by blood. By that logic, Jack shouldn't go either, right? He's not technically family, as you're saying. But we all know that's ridiculous. He's part of the family. And since Hugo and Jenny got married, she's family too." "Well, Jack is different. He's our precious angel. He's always been here, but Jenny hasn't. That's why I'm not comfortable with her coming on the trip. It's my birthday, so I get to decide. Come on, Jenny, we're leaving now." "No." When I firmly said no, it grabbed everyone's attention, including Maria's, who had been trying to hide a smile. But when I spoke up, her smile vanished. "Maria, you've made it obvious from the start that you don't like me. I've put up with your behavior for 3 years. Do you really think we don't notice how you act? You're a narcissist. Watch your tone, young lady. You're in my house. And I won't be staying much longer. Actually, I'm leaving right now. But before I go, I need to say something." I looked at my husband, whose eyes were filled with anger as he stared at his mother. "Sweetheart, I love you more than anything, and I've tried to make this work for so long. But it's clear now that your mother will never accept me into this family, no matter what I do. She'll always have a problem with me. You should go on this trip. It's important and you can't miss it. Despite how difficult your mother can be, she's still your mother, and you love her. So you should go. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay." Then, I turned to my mother-in-law, whose mouth hung open in shock at my words. "And as for you, I'm sorry to say, but I love your son, and I'm not going anywhere. You might try to push me away, but I'll always be here. Even when you're in Hawaii, you'll still be thinking about me because, let's be real, I think you're obsessed with me. How dare you? I should slap you right now. I'm not finished. You are obsessed with me. You're obsessed with tearing me down. And I can't understand why when I've only shown you kindness and patience, even when you didn't deserve it. But enough is enough. If you don't want me to go to Hawaii with you, fine. If you don't think I'm part of the family, fine. But I'll always be here. As long as I'm alive, I'll be here for Hugo, Kyle, and even Jack. But never for you." At that moment, I realized I finally silenced her. She stood there with her mouth hanging open, seemingly at a loss for words. For once, I'd managed to keep her quiet. I said my goodbyes to the rest of the family, gave my husband a kiss on the cheek, and headed towards the door. "Let me drive you home at least. I can't let you take a cab." "Please don't worry about me, honey. I love you and thank you for loving me, but I'll be fine. You have a trip to plan." "All right, if you say you'll be okay, I'll trust you. Oh, don't forget your purse." "Ah, my purse. I left it in the kitchen." Later on, Maria went into the kitchen, maybe to take a moment after the intense situation. After being confronted like that, I'd need a breather too. What do you want? Don't worry about me, honey. I'm just here to get my things. Well, hurry up. I want you out of my house. I can't believe you said those things to me. With that, she stormed out, too angry to even see me off. I rolled my eyes at her dramatics and reached for my purse. Next to it, I noticed a piece of paper with Maria's handwriting. I assumed it was the trip itinerary, feeling a bit bitter about not going. Curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed it and started reading. Dear Jack, you've always been like a son to me, and I love you dearly. Oh, it's a letter to Jack. That's a bit unexpected, but I suppose it's nice. As I continued reading, my curiosity got the best of me. The love and care you've shown me over the years will never be forgotten. I hate to admit it, but even when it comes to my son Hugo, I feel like the love we once shared is fading. Wait, what? She loves Jack more than Hugo? That doesn't make sense. As I continued to read the letter, each line shocked me more than the last. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was so much to process, and although it wasn't right for me to read the letter, I'm grateful I did. After finishing it, I paced in the kitchen, trying to figure out what to do. Then it hit me. Everyone who needed to know about this letter was in the other room. It was time to act. I read the letter again to confirm what I had seen. Yep, it was the same shocking content. I walked back into the dining room, where only 3 pairs of eyes met mine. Jenny, I'm so sorry for what Maria is putting you through. Don't worry, you're coming to Hawaii with us. She's just going through a rough patch, but I'll talk to her and make her change her mind. I don't know what's gotten into her lately, but I'll fix it, Kyle said. Kyle, please don't worry about me. I'm fine. Actually, I found something interesting that I need to share with everyone, especially Hugo. Hugo and Jack looked concerned. Hugo might have thought I was about to ask for a divorce. Whenever I complained about his mother, he'd agree and wonder how I put up with it. I always told him it was because I loved him too much to leak and that I'd go through anything for him. I noticed Maria wasn't here. Where is she? She needs to be part of this too. I mentioned earlier she seemed a bit off after your confrontation. She said she got a headache and wanted to rest upstairs. She won't be down for a while. You know how she is about her beauty sleep. I sighed, irritated by Maria's habits that inconvenienced others. This is really important. She needs to be here. It's okay, Jenny. You can tell us, and we'll let her know when she wakes up. I hesitated, wanting Maria to hear this too. I think you should just tell us, honey. It's okay, and you know Hugo struggles with anxiety. It's not good to keep him waiting. That was true. Hugo's anxiety was noticeable, and I didn't want to add to it. Okay, fine. I'll show you what I found when I was in the kitchen getting ready to leave. It's something important that you all need to know about. I pulled out the paper and began to read. It says, Dearest Jack, you've always been like a son to me, and I love you dearly. The love and care you've shown me won't be forgotten. But even when it comes to my son Hugo, I feel like our love isn't the same. What? What does this mean? As I continued reading, the words sent shockwaves through the room. Hugo, things between us just aren't the same anymore. And I think it's because of Jenny. Since he married her, he's drifted away from me. He doesn't love me anymore. And so I don't think I love him either. But you're my son, and I love you. I've decided to update my will so that you inherit everything, not Hugo. I know it might hurt him, but I don't care anymore. That Jenny girl is to blame. She's poisoned my feelings for him. I hope you understand. I didn't want to tell you in person because I couldn't bear to see the rejection on your face. I know you love Hugo like a brother, and you might not approve, but I don't care. Everything, the money, the house, the cars, even my businesses, they're all yours. If you want to talk about it more, call me. I love you forever, your second mom. When I finished reading, the room was filled with a mix of emotions. Kyle looked like he might cry, Jack was stunned, but Hugo looked furious, like he was ready to explode. I can't believe she said all that. Is she serious? She cut me out of her will just because of Jenny? She's gone mad. I'm speechless. This is too much. I'm done with her toxic behavior. What do we do now? In that moment, an idea struck me. 1 week passed, and it was time for the planned Hawaii trip. Maria woke up to find a note from her husband on her bedside table. Good morning, beautiful. We decided to let you sleep in a bit longer. Don't worry, your bags are all packed. Just meet us at the airport." Maria quickly got ready and headed to the airport, searching anxiously for her family members. She tried calling them, but nobody picked up. Assuming they were already on the plane, she hurriedly boarded her flight, hoping to meet them in Hawaii. She endured the 12-hour flight, and once she landed, Maria video called Kyle. "Hello. Kyle, where are you guys? I woke up late and saw your note, which was cute if I hadn't slept in. I got to the airport and tried calling, but no one answered. I assumed you had already boarded, but now we're in Hawaii. How exciting. Where are you? Let's meet up and start the fun." "That won't be happening, Maria." "What do you mean? Where are you?" "I'm at home." "What?" "I'm at home. We're all at home. Say hi, everyone." Kyle showed Maria on his phone that they were all sitting at the dining table where they received the upsetting news a week ago. "What do you mean? Why are you at home?" "You see, Maria, Jenny shared some eye-opening information with us last week. Since then, we decided we'd rather spend our time in Florida with her than anywhere else with you." Maria gasped. "You think I wouldn't find out?" "Find out what, dear?" "Oh, don't try to sweet-talk me. You were really planning to cut me out of the will, Mom." Hi, how did you even find out about that?" "That girl you despise, Jenny, found your letter in the kitchen." "I don't know what you're talking about. Maria, lying won't help." "Jack, you have to believe me. I didn't do anything like that. We all read the letter, Maria. It's over." But, I didn't do anything. Jenny is lying." "Oh, really? You're so pathetic. It's nauseating. We all know the truth. Thank goodness I found that letter." "Hugo, Kyle, please." "No, Maria, enough. You're done. You don't get to say anything. Your hatred blinded you, and now you have to face the consequences of being alone on your birthday because of your actions. Use this time to reflect." "But I'll be alone. It won't be fun. Maybe people would want to hang out with you if you weren't so unpleasant. Enjoy." With that, Kyle ended the call. We all sighed with relief, and I couldn't help but start laughing. Hugo joined in, and soon we were all laughing at the absurdity of it all. Maria's shocked expression was priceless. Her face went pale, and I could see her embarrassment. We laughed at the dining table, relieved that the truth was out. Maria spent her vacation alone, desperately calling Kyle to join her to avoid canceling expensive reservations. However, Kyle refused, insisting on setting ground rules for their marriage upon her return. Maria's attitude changed drastically, becoming apologetic and frantic, surprising everyone. Hugo made it clear that Maria needed a major attitude adjustment to remain in his life, or he'd leave her. He warned that any disrespect would result in him cutting ties. Jack realized he needed to stop enabling Maria's behavior by being overly nice. Maria's trip turned miserable, and she risked losing the most important people in her life. Her relationships with them became rocky, and she faced the challenge of change. I told Maria I needed time to forgive her, refusing to intervene on her behalf. Despite her apologies, Maria still tries to mend the broken relationships she caused. I hope she learned her lesson from this experience.
When I first saw my sister-in-law, Catherine, she seemed really nice and had attractive features. But as I wanted to be friends with her, that feeling changed when I noticed an older lady. I wondered if she was my brother's wife's mom. Things got awkward when my sister-in-law not only cut off my greeting, but also called me an old lady. After that, my days turned into a bit of a nightmare. I'm Catherine Johnson, a regular 30-year-old homemaker. Just 4 years ago, I had a job and was really into it. I don't mean to boast, but I was well liked at work, achieving a lot and earning respect from colleagues and clients. Bob, who is now my husband, was one of them. We used to meet often because of our work connections. Our friendship began at a party with Bob's company. He started talking to me because he had heard good things about me. Bob wanted to check if the rumors were true, so he joined a meeting with me. At first, he was unsure, but as we worked together, he liked my strong personality and lifestyle. Eventually, he realized I was the one for him. When I found out he was trying to make me like him, I thought it was cute, like something a high schooler would do. But to be honest, I had a crush on Bob from the start. He had great looks and was popular with women. Even though we were business partners, I kept my feelings at a distance. However, After Bob asked me out several times, we dated for a year and then got married. Our married life was really good, and every day was happy. In the mornings, while I made breakfast, Bob would wake up with a nice expression, say good morning, and give me a warm hug. It became our routine. Even though he's older, his childlike behavior always made me feel motherly. Plus, Bob and I never argued. He never gets angry. Once, when I accidentally broke a plate he liked, he cared more about me than the plate. I always think about how kind he is. We both wanted a child, so after we got married, I decided to quit my job to focus on starting a family. I believed any child of ours would be cute. I'd often thought about names, especially if we had a girl. Time passed, and this year is our 3rd anniversary. We haven't had a child yet, but we're still happy. There's just one thing bothering us. Bob's family home has his mom and younger sister. His dad passed away from cancer before we got married. His mom is always cheerful and has been really kind to me. I think Bob's kindness comes from his mom, but his sister is different. I didn't like her. It all started when I first met her. Before we got married, I thought she was charming, like Bob. I wanted to be friends, but that feeling disappeared quickly. I said, "Nice to meet you. I'm Catherine." She interrupted and asked if I was my brother's wife's mom. She not only cut off my greeting, but also made things awkward by calling me an old lady. When Bob tried to introduce me, she fainted in surprise and asked my age. I said, 27. She didn't believe it and thought it was funny, thinking I was 50. "You look really old." That was rude. I started to doubt if this girl was really Bob's sister. She stared at me from top to bottom, judging me. I just stayed quiet until she frowned. I wasn't sure if she didn't like my face or my attitude, but she kept making mean comments about how I looked. "Your clothes are outdated. You're overweight. Your nails are messy," and more. Eventually, I just slipped down at my own feet. Bob was getting angry, something he rarely did, while his sister kept laughing. Then Bob spoke up. "Hey, what are you saying? That's really rude." She just replied, "Oh, whatever. You're so annoying." It ruined the mood. She's just plain mean, making the same kind of rude comments to Bob and their mom. They had put up with her behavior for years without expecting her to change. Both Bob and his mom apologized to me later, even though they weren't at fault. I felt sorry for them, but I was also mad at the sister-in-law for making such mean remarks to her own family. To avoid problems, I decided not to go to Bob's family home anymore. I heard about the sister-in-law from their mom, but she didn't cause any issues for us. So, I kept living my life peacefully. Then, something happened that messed up my happy routine. "Catherine, Bob, I need a favor. I plan to move to a senior housing place in 6 months with help. Can I stay with you until then?" Bob's mom hurt her back, not surprising. It's pretty clear the sister-in-law is responsible. Their mom already had a weak back and struggled with carrying groceries. Yet the sister-in-law, who lived with her, didn't help and made their mom carry her shopping bags. That's how selfish she is. It's not surprising that their mom's health got worse. I don't get why the mom doesn't just kick her out. Maybe it's because she's her daughter? No matter how bad a child is, a mother's love has no limits. I'm okay with living with Bob's mom, but that means the sister-in-law comes along too. It was the last thing I wanted, but I was worried about the mom's health, so I had to agree to the sister-in-law moving in. As I expected, living together was terrible from morning to night. The sister-in-law only said mean things, especially to me. When I cooked, she'd say, "This tastes awful. How can you make such bad food? You're strangely talented," and then throw the food away. Even when I folded her clothes, she'd find something to complain about. Sometimes she'd say, "You need to iron this properly." Her attitude was like a rebellious teenager. The sister-in-law never mentioned anything about how I folded or ironed before. She twists words to fit her story. When cleaning the room, I have to be really thorough, especially in the corners. Otherwise, my sister-in-law starts making sharp comments. "Hey, there's still dust over there. You're pretty much the maid here, so do it right. You're so useless." Even though she doesn't help, She's quick to point out flaws. I wonder silently when I'll get out of this tough situation. While I kept cleaning, she said, "Poor Bob, you can't even handle chores. At least have a child. Why were you even born a woman?" I couldn't let that slide. I usually stayed quiet, but this was too much. I didn't say anything, or maybe I couldn't. The look on my sister-in-law's face was scary, like she was disgusted. The pressure was so strong that I had to look down. It was scary and made me mad. All these feelings were inside me, and all I could do was hold back tears. Then my sister-in-law left, laughing. One day, she came home really happy. When my mother-in-law asked why, she proudly shared that her boyfriend had proposed. She bragged about him being tall, handsome, and making a lot of money. She came to me, talking about my inability to have children. While I'm on top of the world, losers like you should have kids. She laughed at me with that familiar mocking tone. It was shocking, especially in front of Bob and my mother-in-law. Bob got mad, but she didn't listen. I felt sick and rushed to the bathroom, tears in my eyes. From behind, she said, "Pathetic," but I didn't care. In the living room, I heard Bob and my sister-in-law arguing. My mother-in-law was next to me, patting my back and saying, "Children are a blessing. It's up to you and Bob to decide." She comforted me with tears in her eyes. I really wished my sister-in-law would get married and leave soon. One day, after visiting the doctor, I took a different route home and stopped by a popular flower shop. I was considering buying some flowers when an old colleague, Steve, noticed me. Even though I left my old job, Steve still sees me as a mentor. We occasionally text about work, but it's been 3 years since we last met. We chatted for a bit, and he shared that he's getting married soon. They had a date planned later that day. I was curious about why he was at the flower shop, but it became clear when he talked happily about his girlfriend. It made me smile too. When it was time to go, Steve picked out flowers and went to pay. While waiting, I looked at the flowers, trying to decide which ones to buy. When Steve returned, he had 2 bouquets and gave one to me as a gift. "This is for you. It's baby's breath, and it means gratitude and happiness. I've always been thankful for you, Catherine. Please continue to be there for me." With that, Steve headed to the train station. Gratitude and happiness, huh? I never chose flowers based on their meaning before, and I thought Steve was a warm-hearted person. I rushed home to tell my husband about this special event. When I got home, my sister-in-law wasn't there. She had gone out. I put the baby's breath in a vase and made dinner with my mother-in-law. It felt nice to have some time with just the 3 of us after a long time. With my sister-in-law away, my mother-in-law enjoyed her favorite TV show that starts at 7 p.m. that night. I told my husband about the day, and we both went to bed happy. The next morning, my sister-in-law came home with a bouquet of roses and threw them at me. She said, "Put these in a vase," and then went to her room. When I tried to put the bouquet in a vase, most of the flowers were broken or torn, so I had to throw them away. I wondered how roughly she had handled them. I started feeling sorry for her boyfriend. After taking a closer look, I recognized the bouquet wrapping. When my sister-in-law changed into her home clothes, she started talking again. "I'm bringing my boyfriend over this Saturday. Make sure you dress decently, okay? Honestly, I wouldn't even want him to see you in your usual tacky outfits." Her words annoyed me, but the thought that my time with her would be short brought some relief. On the planned day, Bob and I were out shopping as my sister-in-law had asked. My mother-in-law texted to say that my sister-in-law's fiancé had arrived while we were away. She probably didn't want me to meet him. When we returned, the living room was busy. When I went to greet them, my sister-in-law gave me a nasty look. I'd accidentally made eye contact with the fiancé. After a brief look, my sister-in-law, seeming to dislike it, said, "Don't just stand there. The tea's gotten cold. Go get a fresh one." Her fiancé tried to help, but she stopped him. My mother-in-law liked the pretty roses and baby's breath in the vase. My sister-in-law made a mean comment, saying, "Why are your flowers and the ones I got from my boyfriend in the same vase? It's terrible. Separate them or throw them out." Your flowers are dull and not cute at all." She took the baby's breath from the vase and dropped it on the floor. While I served the fresh tea and put the baby's breath in another vase, my sister-in-law kept making mean comments. Seemingly bothered by my silence, she purposefully spilled the tea I had just poured, making a mess on the floor. The floor, which my mother-in-law and I had cleaned that morning, was now stained brown. I could see my sister-in-law looking nervous and agitated from where I stood. Bob brought a cloth to help me clean the floor. "Bob, you don't have to do this for her. Come on, let's sit and chat." The atmosphere was tense. Did my sister-in-law not realize that her words were causing problems? Her fiancé, who was watching everything, tried to defend me with his words. But of course, my sister-in-law wasn't happy about it. "Why are you defending her?" "You should only be looking at me," she said. "Things were getting worse. Isn't she your sister?" Her fiancé asked for clarification. In response, my sister-in-law said her usual mean phrase. "Nah, she's just the maid here, so it's okay." My mother-in-law tried to stop my sister-in-law, but as expected, it didn't work. She kept going with her usual mean comments. After she finished, her fiancé looked at her and said something surprising. "Let's break up." What? Steve was really upset. No wonder, considering he was Steve. I had a feeling that my sister-in-law was engaged to Steve. The bouquet of roses she brought home was the same one Steve had bought just the other day. Catherine is a coworker, someone I really respect, and who's kinder than anyone else. "Remember the baby's breath flower you said wasn't cute? I sent it to Catherine. Sorry for my bad taste." "Hold on. I didn't know you both worked together." My sister-in-law, who was happy a moment ago, started to panic. "Just because you didn't know, you think you can make fun of him. I'd always heard about you being mean, but Catherine isn't like that." Steve looked stern. My mother-in-law looked down, and my husband stood next to me, glaring at my sister-in-law. Everyone in the room was disappointed in her. Seeing this, my sister-in-law looked at me, hoping for support. "Is this a joke? Please tell me it is." She pulled my collar so hard it stretched my shirt. I firmly shook off her hand. "I've put up with your mean comments for so long. After everything you've done, don't come to me for help now." For the first time, I showed my true feelings towards my sister-in-law. "You've got to be kidding me. You can't do anything right. You can't even have kids. You're finished as a woman." As my sister-in-law tried to slap me, Bob stepped in and grabbed her hand. Bob, who had been silent until now, took a cup of tea and poured it over my sister-in-law's head in anger. Then he shouted at her in a low, booming voice. Bob started telling the truth about our struggles to have a baby. It wasn't me who couldn't have children, it was Bob himself. Bob had a problem that made it hard to have a baby. But with the right treatment, it got better, and now I was pregnant. Angry at my sister-in-law's mean comment, Bob told her to say sorry right away. Seeing her brother really mad for the first time, my sister-in-law was so surprised that she fell on her butt. "What's happening, Mom? You're on my side, right?" My sister-in-law held onto my mother-in-law's hand, trying to cling to her leg in a funny way, but she got pushed away. "I'm done with you. I've let a lot slide because you're my daughter, but I've had enough. Leave this house now. You're the worst daughter, you ungrateful brat." My sister-in-law thought her mom was her last friend, that even she left her. Clearly, she was shocked by this too. She ran to her room crying. Steve said he would talk to us later and left. My mother-in-law hugged me and said, "You went through a lot. You did well," while patting my head. My mother-in-law, hearing for the first time that I was pregnant, cried with a smile, saying, "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Congratulations." Bob said sorry for not protecting me properly. It was a crazy few minutes, but I felt better after finally telling my sister-in-law how I felt. I'll never forget what happened today. Later, my mother-in-law moved to a senior living place, and we sold a family home. Bob and I decided to move closer to her because we wanted her to see our child grow up. I haven't heard anything about my sister-in-law since then. After that, Bob made his sister leave the house, taking all her things with her. Nobody has been in touch with her, so we don't know where she is or what she's doing. Steve sent me a text saying he sent a letter and some flowers. A bouquet of baby's breath just arrived. I put it in a vase and started reading the letter. Catherine, I'm sorry for my late response. How are you? Congratulations on your pregnancy. It was such unexpected happy news that it even made me happy. The letter talked about his relationship with my sister-in-law. After the incident, it seems Steve and my sister-in-law met once. It came out later that my sister-in-law was seeing someone else too. Steve found out when the other man contacted him. They cut ties and aren't in touch anymore. If they had gotten married, he would have regretted it. The letter was full of gratitude. I should be thanking Steve, but he's really a sincere guy. I truly hope he finds happiness. The end of my sister-in-law, who bullied me a lot, was unexpected. Through all this, I learned that how you treat others comes back to you, whether it's good or bad. I hope my child grows up with kindness and understanding.